Welcome to Holistic Health Heroes, here to help you become your own health advocate and introduce you to some heroes in the holistic health arena. Let's get started. All right, well, I'm sitting here with double board certified holistic health practitioner and certified nutritional therapist, Reed Davis, who is a globally recognized expert in functional lab testing and holistic lifestyle medicine. He's founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, and Reed has pioneered the FDN Certification Course, which has helped more than 4,000 practitioners across 50 countries. And not only that, but with more than a decade of experience as a health director of a wellness center, Reed has personally guided over 10,000 clients to optimal wellness. So welcome, Reed.
Hey, thanks very much, Carrie. Pleasure to be here.
So glad to have you here and have this great conversation today. And I noticed when I was kind of brushing up on you and all things, functional diagnostic nutrition, that I heard your story, your personal story of having started out in environmental law and then shifting your focus and helping people do all these many labs, thousands of labs for thousands of people. Yet you always point out, I'm not licensed in diagnostics, but you can still help people very much in doing so. And you have. And so I kind of wondered as I learned about you, do you consider yourself a system disruptor?
I think other people do. I'm just a guy that wants to be helpful. But in order to do that, I had to kind of bump up against some lines that I learned not to cross. And it actually worked out to our advantage because the people coming in the office 25 years ago and got into this field didn't want another diagnosis and treatment from a regular doctor. Matter of fact, a lot of them, their regular doctor had told them nothing's wrong with you. And people here, almost everybody knows someone that happened to. Oh, you look fine. It's all in your head, or so. Here's a chill pill. So, so the fact that I bumped up against diagnosing and treating, and you're supposed to have a license for that. You must have a license. I learned not to do it
Right.
and to find out what's really wrong instead.
It's
So
become
that
such a
that
familiar
was a good.
story. Yeah, go ahead.
No, what's your question?
No, I can't help but point out that what you described there from 25 years ago is, you go to the doctor, you get a test of some sort, and then they tell you you're fine. And that's something I'm familiar with too, personally. And it's become such a common story. And you're referencing, it's been going on for so long.
Yeah, well, people know something's wrong, so they're not buying that. I don't feel the same. I don't have the much energy. I'm not sleeping. I'm overweight. I'm tired, and whatever it might be, skin conditions. And gosh, we've helped people with just about every kind of condition that had been told either your blood work looks normal, almost like, and they would say nothing's wrong, and I would go, yeah, not yet, because these numbers just aren't really that helpful. And or they did get a diagnosis, but the minute they got that diagnosis, Carrie, they were kind of told, oh, here's your problem, and here's the solution, the fix. Usually one part, one product, one drug or whatever for that thing, and that wasn't working for them either. Because when you do lay down a diagnosis, you're very likely forgetting about the other 12 things you need to know and do. Yeah, so I fortunately, just really fortunately, just oh my goodness, I was so lucky to be in a position to learn from some great old timers. They call me OG now. I don't know what that means, but I think I learned from the original gangsters. We were just alternative medicine. We weren't considered mainstream at all.
Right. Yeah. Who were some of those mentors that you had, by the way?
Dr. Bill Timmons was a great guy. He founded a lab because the lab work wasn't adequate, and he had his own it was called environmental illness back then. Another Dr. Bill Bailey, was a DO who was totally he was actually a rocket science before he was a doctor, like super brilliant guy. I used to take him out for sushi once a week and pick his brain on anything with any of our clients and patients. So I worked in this clinic, and another Bill Wolcott, who wrote the book Metabolic Typing Diet, which is I recommend to everybody. They could go to mtdiet.com for some diet information and things, and lots of others. You know, Dr. John Lee wrote the book "What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Menopause," and then
Oh,
another book. Like, so these were the guys that were out of the box physicians who were kind of promoting alternative medicine. That, hey, standard medicine isn't working. That was
right.
25 years ago. And you can go before that, but I went from environmental law and conservation into the wellness field because I was tired of seeing dead fish and dead birds, and I started wondering about people.
Yeah,
There's also some things about that industry. I made a lot of money in that industry, but it was became all about the money and not saving the planet. I signed up to save the planet. That's why
right.
I got into environmental law, was because and by the way, we changed the world. Um, there's a lot of um, government organizations and big companies that were polluting the planet that we sued and won some big cases. And now where I grew up on Lake Erie, where it was dead. It was a dead lake. In
Mm,
1968, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire, and now you can fish in Lake Erie. They're shipping walleye. So it's the pickerel or walleye capital of the world, but it was a dead lake at one point. So environmental law and that has done a lot of good, but I just started seeing it being all about the money. And so I
right. And
left and I went into helping people.
yeah, I mean, and if you're working on the environment, or you're trying to, like you say, save the planet, the lakes, the rivers, inevitably that leads to people and their health, right? And then that's where
Yeah.
yeah, and then as a health director in the wellness clinic, that's where you were able to do all those thousands and thousands of labs on people, right? So when you
Yeah.
did that, I know through that work, there came an acronym that I'm familiar with now through you, and that is the DRESS acronym: diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. So could you talk a little bit about like maybe how that came to be?
Yeah, for sure. So I was in the clinic again. I was just so fortunate to kind of land in this area and love it so much. It was just really very emotionally rewarding to help people. And uh, I would run labs and run labs and run labs. I ran thousands of labs, thousands of people, and people were coming in. At our wellness center, we had chiropractic and acupuncture and massage. We had a DO, we had a podiatrist, we had different modalities and things. And people were coming in to answer your question. And I started looking at them and talking to them, and I was working with them too. And I said, it's not coming in the office that's going to help you. It's what you do at home. So I started just, what do you mean? I go, and in the DRESS acronym, well, what are you eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner? And what time do you go to bed and get up in the morning? Are you sleeping with? And exercise, of course, goes without saying. I was a personal trainer too back then. And so that was important. But through the testing, I learned about the different types of stress and what it does to your body. And then supplementation, because food just isn't good enough anymore. The DRESS, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation, came out of sending people home and telling them it's not coming in the office that's going to fix you. It's
Mhm.
how you live. You can live yourself out of what you've lived yourself into. It's all lifestyle disease that we handle. So um, it just seemed natural, and now it's kind of cute.
Yeah, that kind of works. And it's for a good way to remember it too. And it is true. I mean, any type of practitioner that you go to, they've got to start with those elements because they're so critical and key. And I'm sure that you saw through all those thousands of patients that you're working with, like, what are some of the results? Do you have any? I love stories. So is there any like standout story where
All my
someone really,
favorites.
yeah, they honed in on the DRESS acronym and then they just changed their world?
Well, you could even just take one of those, like diet or whichever one you want to take. And um, diet is probably the most influential. That and reducing stress. And you can actually get two birds for one stone. You can refine your diet and remove stressors because diet can be very stressful to the body. You know, the body doesn't care where the stress comes from. It could be mental, emotional, physical trauma, aches, pains, and things, which I have had a lot of. But the chemical stressors of the wrong foods, elements, it's very tricky. Um, but we make it simple. Run a test, don't guess, and you can remove a lot of hidden stressors by correcting your diet. So we ran labs, and I had so many people. I coached football as well, just as a hobby. Like I loved coaching kids in football. So for 15 years, I did that. And I can tell you how many kids had problems, ADD and asthma and all this, and they would screw up on the practice field, and I talked to the parents or the parent. I had one mom come to me and say, "Hey, Billy, he can't come to practice, but can he still play in the game on Saturday?" And of course, I said, "No.
You got to do the
You have
work.
to. It's not how it works. You have to come to practice. You learn the new plays, and you learn about the opponent because we scouted even at 13. We're scouting the other teams and stuff because we
Yeah.
wanted to win. So no, why? What's wrong? Why can't he come to practice? Well, he's got asthma and he's embarrassed about his inhaler, using his inhaler. I said, well, listen, let's do some couple labs and we'll see if we can find out what's triggering his breathing problem. I only look at symptoms. I don't look at labels. Like I wouldn't say the word asthma if it didn't relate to our conversation right now. What do you mean? Oh, his breathing. Okay, so breathing. What's triggering this problem? And we got some testing done, got that kid off those foods that had shown red flag. And guess what? No more asthma attacks.
No more quote unquote asthma.
Within 2 weeks, he never had another attack. And he went on. Now, I'm coaching youth football, like kids. And he went on to have an amazing, like at least high school football career. It's not a career in high school. They call it that. And it was just always nice to see the parents down at the gas station or grocery store in our town. And they'd be, thank you, Coach Davis,
Yeah, I guess
for
so.
years. I mean, for years. And
Yeah.
that's just one story of a kid. Um, since you asked quickly, another, and this is true for adults, but since I love working with kids so much and they respond so quickly, I had a mom I was working with doing really well, coming in the office. And she asked if I work with kids. Yeah, I coach football, raise 4 kids. I work with kids. Why? Oh, they want to send my kid home from school if I don't put him on drugs. Ritalin was the drug of choice back then for behavior problems. I said, well, what do you mean? Like a doctor at the school? No, the teacher and principal had conspired to send this kid home if she doesn't put him on something. And I said, I don't know if I could help or not, but let's run some tests and see. And after there were test results and got the mom tuned up. I never even met the young man. By the way, he was only 9 years old.
Wow.
And they wanted to put a 9-year-old on a class 2 narcotic, which is the same class as cocaine,
Oof.
So not a good thing.
No.
And
Not to mention they're not doctors. What are they doing recommending a drug?
well, I asked her when she was first, do you think he has a Ritalin deficiency? And she didn't think it was funny. She was mad, like, no, and I don't want to put him on drugs. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I could help. I don't know. Let's run some labs. And sure enough, within 3 weeks of the report of findings and instructing the mom, got a call from the principal who tracked me down. Hey, Mr. Davis, I tracked you down through the mom. And, I just want to say this is a different kid. He's paying attention. He's not poking the other kids. He's not outbursting rudely in class or any of that stuff. And I was, I still get chills going up and down my spine when I think of the amount of help that we provided. And then he blew it. He goes, what'd you put him on? Which is like, he wanted to know
Yeah.
what's the magic thing in the bottle. And I had to tell him Well, we put them on a better diet and bedtime schedule and homework schedule and exercise schedule and all this stuff.
Hmm.
It just fixed the problem. What
Right.
about drugs? And so
Right.
anyway, so I have that story and many, many, many more.
Yeah. And
That
it's true.
where you, again, it's the emotional satisfaction from helping people outweighs everything. The money, which is good, but it's like that's not what you live for. It's not what I get up for in the morning.
Right. Right. Well, what strikes me about that is that the thinking has to change. And that's why I kind of mentioned the system disruptor, right? Because most of the world, the country, let's say, they're living in a system of, you pay the insurance, then you go to the doctor who is under your insurance and you follow the one path that they give you. To disrupt that system is to change your thinking first, and think of it as the solution is not at the game, it's in the everyday life. It's, the solution is in what, so much power that you have to make your own choices, do your own thinking about what path are you really going to take. But of course, testing can be super important and informative. So could you talk a little bit about what how do you describe the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition organization or company that you have to people who've never heard of it before?
It's interesting you pointed out. By the way, I'll just back up and say, psychologically, I'm called a nonconformist. Like from the time I was a kid, I was a nonconformist. So that's how you become a disruptor. You got to
Yeah.
start with like just I have a BS meter that's like really sensitive. Yeah, and you too. So so the again, running the labs in the office was such a true like blessing. Like, and one day after many years, one of the lab directors called me and he said, "Who the hell are you?" Like, what do you mean? I'm just me. Well, he goes, "Yeah, but you run more labs than any five doctors combined. Matter of fact, our top five doctors, business wise, don't run as many labs as you do
Hmm.
combined." And I had no clue. I don't know. I just like helping people, and all of our patients coming in the office, I just run labs. Like, what else am I going to do? Guess at what their problem is, or just follow the standard diagnosis, which hasn't worked for them. So I have to run the labs to find out. And this is the key phrase, Carrie. It's healing opportunities. So I don't
Hmm.
look to diagnose. And that's why we run multiple labs. We're looking for a constellation of what I call contributors to metabolic chaos. You know my work. But so that started following a pattern, another acronym, if you will, the hidden one. You know,
Yeah.
so
Go.
most of our patients were women. So you got to check their hormones, right? And a lot of them got better. And like, because you balance the hormones, and that seemed to be settling their main complaint. But some of them, well, no, they also had immune system problems. So they were over response. They were very sensitive to all kinds of things, and that would then ruin their digestion. And I can show you through all the lab work how the dominoes fall. But the HIDDEN became the investigative process. And
Hmm.
so when it comes to testing, I think you asked me about, it follows a very reliable pattern now. At first, I just ran labs learning, and I could say I didn't know what I was doing actually, but I was doing a lot of it. and and so then people were really happy, like they would keep coming back for what about this and what about that, and I would sort out which labs until I came up with this pattern, the hidden, that stands for hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system testing. So that's all the healing opportunities. And then the dress program addresses all of them at the same time. So that's our system. So when you said what's functional diagnostic nutrition, it's a way of thinking that the body's designed really well. There's an innate intelligence in every cell. You don't have to teach a cell what its job is. It knows. It knows if it's an adrenal cell, brain cell, muscle cell, whatever. It knows, and it just wants to be left alone, basically, but given a lot of nutrients and remove interference. So that's our basic philosophy. But how do you find out what's wrong with people? You got to run labs. So it's functional as in how is everything functioning from cells, tissues, organs, systems, entire organism, functional levels and functional ranges for the markers and things. And it's diagnostic in nature, but not medical diagnosis. That's something I'm
Mhm.
not licensed to do, and no one coming to our office ever wanted another diagnosis. I got 3 of those already, thanks. Can you tell me what's really wrong?
Right.
So I spent 10 years there doing that. And so when that guy said, "Hey, you're busier than any 5 doctors combined as far as the amount of lab work you do," he said, "You should be teaching.
Mm.
You should be teaching others." And then I just didn't pay any attention to him. And I'm a nonconformist, right? I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. The only
Right.
reason I was doing what I was doing was to build the practice, build the business, build our wellness center. So I
Mm.
ended up lecturing all around Southern California. And that's when I also kind of helped to create telemedicine because I was lecturing up to 60 and 90 miles away. I was driving an hour and a half to give a lecture. I knew
Mm.
those people weren't going to drive an hour and a half to the office. So I said, well, look, we'll just mail you the test kits. You could do them. So I refined the testing to be what kind of at home or self-directed, we call it now direct to consumer. I created the first direct to consumer lab testing program. Now there's 50, but there was none. And
Oh,
so then it was all working on the phone back then. I had a pager and a fax machine. That was high tech back then. You know,
right.
it was none of these things,
Yeah.
or this Zoom thing that we're doing, or a type of studio. It was just a lot of work and fun. And then the nutrition part. So function, diagnostic in nature, like the way your mechanic might diagnose your car, or a computer specialist diagnoses your hard drive or something like that. And it's looking for what's really wrong. And then the nutrition was because I was a nutritionist, personal trainer. I did body work like extraordinaire in the office, but so it's about nurturing. Really, it's nurturing, functional diagnostic nutrition. So FDN. Now there's FDN practitioners. That's what I called it. I had to have a name to call it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Of
I'm stuck
course.
with it. But so now there's FDN practitioners in 50 different countries, even if you only
Amazing.
have one. You know,
Amazing. I think what you're doing is so amazing because I know from just personal experience and things of talking to people is like you might have some kind of health challenge go on, let's say, and then you find some information and you're like, oh, that's what it is. And let me do this or let me take that. And you do that for a while and you see some improvements, but then you're kind of right back to where you began because you haven't gotten down to the layers that you need to get down to. So I think what you're providing here is allowing people, not only the practitioners that can go and get certified and then help people through lab testing, but then the consumers who want to advocate for their health, want to think differently about their health, want to take some responsibility and really get down to the root cause.
well, that's exactly right, and that was our mission back then. But I've kind of altered it a bit because there's if root cause is a good thing to look for, but sometimes it might not even be there anymore. Recent research from the University of California, San Diego, where I live, says that root cause could have been long gone. But the downward spiral that it created metabolically, there's sort of little levers and things that get sort of broken or upset or out of balance. So that's why. And so you never find it, the root cause.
Mm.
So we look for causal factors, and they are very high upstream. Sometimes they're very remote from where the symptom is occurring. Like that asthma, it was really a trigger based on the immune system and diet and different things, or other chemicals. Anyway, what I'm saying is that the root cause could be very far removed. And here's another thing: there's always more than one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I did hear you say root causes, right?
Causal factors. So these causal factors are very far upstream. And here's another thing you don't hear much. they're affecting each other in
Yes.
ways that can't be singly measured. So you need to multiply or identify multiple causal factors. We have our favorite areas that's a very reliable pattern, the HIDDEN. So we'll run multiple labs, identify all of these healing opportunities, and then apply the principles of healing, really kind of self-healing, the principles of healing that are inherent in nature and um, the infinite intelligence in
Yeah.
every cell and in the universe.
You know
So
what?
it's kind of
What that's sorry to interrupt you. That's making me think of like something like that's complex, like Lyme disease, right? When someone has Lyme disease, they've usually had lots and lots of things. They've gone to, get diagnosed with this, that, the other thing, Epstein-Barr, whatever it is, and then finally it's okay. You have Lyme disease, but it's really like a lot of co-infections. Is that kind of aligned
yes,
with what you're saying?
yeah, they're co-infections, and some of them are quite. Um, I don't like the word mysterious, but I will say obnoxiously hard to identify. And it's not as simple as take this for that. We wish it was, and sometimes that works, and even if only temporarily. So relief care, there's nothing wrong with relief care. If you have a pain, you want something to make it go away, and that's okay. But you need to find the cause, the original stressors. So that's worth talking about for a second, just the word
Yeah,
stress, because stress
please.
reduction is a big part of our diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction. Well, what do you mean? It's not just that you don't like your job or your kids are misbehaving or you have financial problems. Those are emotional stressors, and bad feelings are suck, but there's so many other kinds of stressors. Um, like me, I have a very well used body, they say, because of my sports and activities. I've injured myself stupidly in some cases, but there you go. That's stress. It's constant. It keeps you up at night sometimes, and it's so. But the body responds the same to the mental emotional stressor, getting yelled at, let's say, as a punch in the face, a physical abuse, or trauma. The body responds with high cortisol levels. Your cortisol and DHEA get out of balance. You enter into a catabolic state. So now your body's breaking down, getting old before its time. And the next domino to fall would be the immune system. You start getting sick more often. And now your digestion doesn't work because big part of the immune system is in the digestive tract. So now, you're not breaking down food properly. You're not getting all the amino acids out of your proteins, and those make neurotransmitters, which affect how you feel. And that's only two types of stress: the mental, emotional, and the physical trauma and things. Then there's the chemical assault. Now, I came out of environmental law. I know about chemical stress, and there's tens of thousands of chemicals in our environment. We're each supposedly absorbing like 255-gallon drums of chemicals per year if you're eating standard foods and breathing standard air and drinking standard drinks. And it's really toxic. I have a physician friend who calls it he says we're marinating in a toxic soup.
Very true.
Yeah, I'm no alarmist. I think there's hope, and always looking on the bright side, right? But you got to know about some of these things, and why you should eat a certain way. And now, just recently, at least in America here, we have I think a chance to take a look at some of these um,
Yeah. I'm hopeful.
lackadaisical rules about what we're allowed to put in food and not label it properly, and think that's really going to be a good step in the right direction.
Yes, I'm hopeful about that too. Um, and not to go back a little bit, you mentioned metabolic, and I think I don't know if maybe this has gone on for many years, but it feels like to me like cellular health or metabolic health is really going to be having a moment soon. Like I've noticed recent book titles coming out or to come in 2025 that talk about your metabolism or your cellular health, and you had that phrase of metabolic chaos. So
Yeah,
could you kind of explain a little bit more about that? What is
yeah,
metabolic
sure.
chaos?
So metabolic chaos is a state that is evident when standard approaches aren't working. So if someone says, I'm tired, fatigued, constipated, and can't lose this 10 pounds, or, my hair's thinning, and a couple of, so that's a very classic, reliable, uh, cluster of symptoms that would sounds like thyroid. And so doctor would go, oh, it sounds like thyroid. And then they check the thyroid. Oh, yep, your thyroid's low. Pat myself and found your problem. Here's your stuff to change it. So that's not what's going on. That's the diagnosis and treatment model that won't work. That same person might actually feel maybe a little more energy from taking some thyroid, and their metabolism might speed up a tiny bit. You lose a couple of pounds, but there's something that caused the low thyroid output. And that's why I call it metabolic chaos. It's multiple causal factors pretty far upstream, all each having an effect on each other, creating metabolic chaos. Now, that is a term that I've just came up with, and I like coming up with terms, and,
It's
because they describe more accurately what's really going on.
good for
So,
teaching.
yeah, one of the pictures I use in my slides when I'm teaching is it's just a pool of water. You just see the water, and there's these rings, like as if someone had just thrown in 7 or 8 or 9 stones.
Mm.
So, and you don't see the stones, you just see the rings. And then what happens to rings is they expand outward, and they run into each other. And then pretty soon you don't see the rings anymore. It's just ripple. The water is just chaotic. The surface is just, someone just threw in a handful of stones. And so our job is to go back. What are those most common rings? And again, the interaction between them. So we're looking at the dots, we might call the data, and how the data is connected. And that's the only real way to resolve metabolic chaos, is by having a step-by-step system. And that's what I guess I'm known for, is the FDN system way of thinking. To answer your question about what is FDN, it's a system, it's a way of thinking, and it's a standard methodology, which is a method plus the ology. There's methodology. That's how you have to think to follow that method. And then it's just, use natural principles of healing so someone can live themselves out of what they live themselves into. Which
I like that whole idea about I would say I subscribe to the same philosophy as far as you have to understand the unraveling, I guess. If it's taken you a lifetime to get somewhere, it's going to take you a while to sort of unravel if something's going wrong. Or, I guess I'm saying I like the idea of putting the body back into its optimal function to
yeah,
see if these things, whatever
yeah,
experiencing symptoms you're experiencing, can just go away without adding more to the mix right away.
yeah, very much so. And it works. We have people that just get there's the relief phase, which you feel better, but you're not corrected yet. There's imbalances still there, but now you've just sort of mitigated them. That's okay. That's what doctors are great at, by the way. You
Yeah.
go in with a complaint, go get some of this and you'll feel better. And most people, that's good enough. But for our patients, it was like, I don't want to just take medication. I want to find out what's wrong and try to fix it. So I don't need this. Medication has risks and side effects and warnings and contraindications and lots of reasons why you might, even if it does a certain job, not want to stay on it for very long. And that's between our patients and their regular doctors. But we've helped resolve so many problems where, hey, you're just masking the symptoms.
Yeah, for sure. So much of that going on. And something else I hear people say a lot is like, let's say with aging, right? People will say, oh, I just can't eat that anymore, whatever that food is, that cucumber or green pepper, red pepper, whatever it is. I can't eat that. But you've said it's not the food, it's who's eating it. So could you highlight that a little bit?
Yeah, for the most part, that's true. So I'll tell you, we had a lady coming in the office for chiropractic, and I did body work. So we would give people trigger point therapy for about 5 minutes, just neck and shoulders, where they're on the table, and get them all nice and relaxed, and then put a heat pack on them. And then the doctor would come in and do the adjusting. I didn't do that part. And I could tell she was really sad one day, walking in, staring at the ground. And what's wrong? Oh, it's this weight. I'm 40 pounds overweight. It's really frustrating. And it's because I'm on this medication for the hives. Because me, I'm like, I wanted to help. Oh, I can't. There's nothing we can do. I'm on this medication for the hives. And she said she'd just been to the doctor for a checkup, and the physician, when she told him how unhappy she was with the frustration of the weight, 2 years on the medication, 40 pounds later, no matter what she did, very frustrating. And he said, lady, you can be fat or you can have the hives.
Wow.
How's that for bedside manner?
Yeah, right.
And then she said, well, that's depressing. And he said, oh, I'll be happy to write your prescription for antidepressants. And
Wow.
when I finally said to her, well, what if we try to find out why you get the hives? What? It just, pooh, her head exploded, like what? So, and within a short period of time, I'm answering your question about diet, because all we did is I ran a diet test and an environmental pollutant panel, but the diet showed things that she was eating every day that she was actually very reactive to, in a way that it's not IgE, so it's not an allergy, it's a different type of reaction, which physicians were not using this test then, 25 years ago, and they're not using it today. And I don't know, well, I know why. It's not covered by insurance. And
Mm.
so you have to pay out of pocket. Doctors won't offer you things you have to pay for out of pocket. Anyway, I said, let's find out why you get the hives. Oh my, what a concept. And
God.
so, yeah, so ran a couple labs. She was so happy. She was so happy she told me next time I saw her, read within 9 days after we talked and I got off those foods. Within 9 days, I called the doctor and said, I'm not taking this medication anymore because I found out why I get the hives.
Mm.
Yeah, and it was just for her. And within another 2 weeks, she was working out to a sweat. She was taking hot showers. She said, Reed, I haven't had a hot shower worked out to a sweat in 2 years, because even on
Oh.
the meds, that would give me the hives. And she'd lost like 13 pounds in
Oof.
just a couple weeks, and it just so unbelievable how important food is the
So
point.
very important.
And it's
Yeah,
why
and we
we
have
always,
control. Yeah, we
food
people.
can be a contributor to metabolic chaos, not to cut
Right.
you off.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't help but think as you tell that story, that's why I want to start it out with this whole idea of a system disruptor, because I think to help yourself with your health and healing, it's a good thing to step into that nonconformist side of you out there, whoever is listening to this, like find the read within inside you, or find the Curie that's in you, that's the nonconformist or system disruptor, whatever label you want to put on it, because the current model is broken. I mean, yes, it's great for the acute stuff. I know I hear that all the time in these types of conversations where you have to give credit where credit is due, and you need the doctor in the hospital if, God forbid, you have something horrible go on and you need acute care. But for chronic disease and problems like this, you need to bust out of that system.
Yeah, and again, I didn't have any choice. When I first started, I went to work in that clinic, and I had a lot to learn, but I had nothing to unlearn. I hadn't been in doctor. I'd never been sick, really. I've had a few injuries, but it's the only reason I went to the doctor. Maybe some dental work, but I didn't know what the system was like, the
Right,
regular doctor system, until
right.
I'm listening to these people saying they've been to 6 practitioners and no one's figured out what's wrong. They just keep selling her some stuff. And I'd be out riding my motorcycle wondering, why the hell are these people listening to someone else? Isn't there a place we could get the data we need? And that lab work was the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
people could be in control of their own health. I don't want them
Yes.
putting their health in my hands.
Right.
Your health,
Yeah.
your health needs to be in your own hands.
It
What
really
you
is
do
about
matters.
empowering. It's empowering people with the right information so they can make good decisions, right? And that was another question I was going to ask you is, since you do work with testing, how would you describe the difference to someone with conventional testing versus functional testing, or is it not the way to categorize it?
That's a good way. I mean, we ran saliva testing, urine testing, stool testing, and our own version of blood work as well. We even checked hair, for minerals and metals and things like that. So it's just a different philosophy. The standard approach is to run certain, we call them CBC and chem panels and differentials and stuff. So doctors know how to do blood work. That's what they're trained in. And there are markers that you don't want to be elevated or too low either. But the problem is the ranges are so wide. Oh, anywhere in here is fine. If you're in here, you're fine, but only when you get over the line, now you're not fine. So we know
Right.
that's not how the body will start breaking down. So what they call now a functional range inside that big reference range is where you should be, and everyone's a little bit different. So you might do better lower in the range or higher in the range. So that's an issue. Like, well, where should I be within the range for the best function? Not just anywhere in that range is fine, because that's not true. You may not be fine. And so what you need to do is track the changes. And no one's doing that because their insurance changes. They change jobs, they get new insurance, they move, they stuff. So they don't have the same doctor, and no one's really tracking before and after. Unless they're on medication with the doctor, they'll track the changes in that hormone or something because they're taking medication for it. And we call that treating the paper. And
Mm,
thyroid's a good example because, again, there's symptoms, a cluster of symptoms around low thyroid that are real. And, so that's I call it the guessing method. Guess which test to run. Well, depends on the symptoms, right? So and you can get pretty good at guessing that it's low thyroid. But
mm,
just putting them on medication and saying, come back in 3 months, we'll see, then we'll retest you and see where those results are now. That's treating the paper. It's just moving one number up or down instead of trying to get the behavior that's going to, the test results aren't the problem. They're the result of the problem. That
right.
sounds a bit weird. Same thing with symptoms. Symptoms aren't the problem. They're the signal. They're telling you that there is a problem, but they're not the problem. If you're tired, you know, just
Mm,
drink coffee. I mean, that's people don't have caffeine deficiencies, or if it's sleep, there's no such thing as an ambient deficiency. Or like I
right.
joked earlier, which I almost got punched in the face for it when I said, "Do you think your child has a Ritalin deficiency?" Like wasn't funny to that person,
Wow.
you know. And
Wow. Trying
I
to
know
point
I,
some.
I go on a bit, but you can ask me anything.
That's good. I love that. Well, I do have another question for you. I'm glad you said that. One of the other things that I was familiar with you talking about was this idea of balancing your hormones. And, you mentioned hormones earlier, so I wanted to kind of circle back to that. Hormones aren't just the sex hormones that everyone thinks of. When they say, oh, you got to balance your hormones, you think, estrogen, progesterone, whatever, testosterone, I guess to some degree. But when you talk about balancing the hormones, what do you think people need to know about that phrase?
I think that everyone is familiar, like you said, with progesterone and estrogen, for instance. A lot of women are on progesterone because they're estrogen dominant and they get funny periods and inappropriate bleeding and just all kinds of things, right? So that's important. But that's the second domino to fall. The most important relationship is cortisol and DHEA. So we have one is the catabolic hormone. Your body breaks down to produce blood sugar so you can stay alive and have brain activity and all that. But the other is building the body up. The kids are very anabolic. So that you have the cortisol, the catabolic, and DHEA, the anabolic steroid hormone. they need to be in balance. And so when you get stressed out, you start making more cortisol, and the DHEA can even end up being diminished. So now you're in a catabolic state. That's a breaking down state. And so immediately, because they're the kind of the parents, DHEA is at least, of the sex hormones go down. So you could be under stress, not even know it, because you think it's normal. You think, oh, that's life. I have 3 jobs and 8 kids, or whatever it is. But you do notice all of a sudden, boy, I'm drinking a lot more coffee. And then I need, liquor at night. Like to one to keep you going and one to calm you down, so you can at least try to get to sleep, and your sleep's disrupted and all these things. So you have stress, but you think it's normal, and you self-medicate. But when the sex hormones go, they're kind of the next thing to. Well, now you've got libido and bleeding and just all kinds of things that can happen to a person, right? Men and women, and that's then they can't self-medicate that, or they might go to the grocery store and try. But they end up going to the physician, and you need to quote unquote balance your hormones. And what you really need to do is go farther upstream, look at the stressors, look at the catabolic anabolic state, but no one does hardly, except in our world we do. And then the next thing to fall, the next domino, because is you'll drive your secretory IgA down. That's the element in the gut. You've heard the gut is where most of your immune system is. You can measure that with, it's called secretory IgA, immunoglobulin A. And so it'll tell us the state of the gut. Now, when that goes down, because of stress has already screwed up the sex hormones, now it's screwing up your immune system, and then you get a dysbiosis, you get an overgrowth, an imbalance. We talked about balancing. How about the good to bad flora in your gut? Well, if you have stress, sex hormone thing, now you got this, and guess what? It starts to affect your digestion. So now you have a digestion, heartburn, gas, indigestion, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, alternating diarrhea and constipation. So you got this. So now you're kind of a mess, and you haven't even gone all the way around, the downward spiral yet. And
Yeah.
if you just try to pick one thing, because that's when thyroid also will go down, and now you're not metabolizing food. You're not assimilating it properly. You're not getting those amino acids from the proteins, and they make neurotransmitters, which are mood, effectors, and on and on. And then you end up with hyperpermeability.
It's
You
just,
get
yeah.
bigger, badder bugs.
And it's domino effect. It makes me think about this methodology. That's the secret to your success, I think, with the FDN, is
Yeah.
what I'm gathering, that's the methodology. It's not that, you might learn something about the thyroid here, the hormones here, and then you're trying to band-aid. But if you've got the method that's been tried and true with these thousands of people that you've worked with, then you can really get down to the real remedy of the situation. I do have a couple more questions. I'll try
Okay,
to
good.
be concise, but you mentioned in that conversation about maybe you do the one IgA, I won't repeat it right, but the one test you just mentioned for the gut. And then I had a question about liver congestion. Like, I think that's a big thing when it comes to your hormone health or in aging. And just as you expose to all these chemicals and things, you have liver congestion now. So question number one is, can you do a test to see if you have liver congestion? And the follow-up question, or the buddy question to that is, when you work with someone through FDN, like as the consumer, do you go through a method, or can you say, I think I've got problems, I think I have liver problems, can we test for this, can we test for that?
You can test for all of it with just a few tests. Like, we have it's a urine test, and you submit your samples to the lab, and it's all done at home. Same thing with saliva testing, that's done at home. The urine testing is done at home. You can collect hair and send it in for good data. That's done at home. Stool collection is done at home. And even some of the blood testing, because it's finger stick. You can use a puncher, and you just go like that, and you just drip some blood out onto a blotter, let it
Yeah.
dry, and you send it into the lab. They reconstitute it. We can check your mucosal barrier that way. So it's convenient. It's not expensive. It's all done from home. And in terms of the liver, we use what are called urinary bile acids that show up in the urine, because the liver is making these bile acids. Well, they're supposed to go into the gallbladder and be recirculated or excreted. So that's the liver processes things, and it removes toxins and does all kinds of neat stuff. And it can get congested. And that's when you'd spill over these, you'd end up with high, they're called urinary bile acids. The bile acids are higher in the blood than they should be. The kidneys are filtering it and they excrete it in urine, so you can measure it. It's kind of simple and easy. And why aren't every physician running it? Because they look for disease instead of dysfunction. So there's liver diseases they look for, like hepatitis, for instance, and other markers of liver disease. But we're just looking for subclinical. Like before that, what happened? Oh, it gets congested because you have leaky gut, and larger particles than normal, and immune complexes and toxins are now floating more freely through the hepatic system. From your gut, everything goes in the liver pretty much, and so obviously they get congested. Of course you can measure that. We've been doing it since one of the first labs I ever ran was a liver congestion test. So
Really?
it's part of our standard intake now. Yeah, it's a little bit different now, different labs. And Dr. Timmons died. Um, his lab ended up going out of business, which was bad. But I took the things that I learned there in those labs, went to other labs and asked them, can you run this? Like, this is what we're looking for. Again, we're not looking to diagnose a uh, diagnosed condition like the CPT and ICD-9 codes and all that stuff. We're not billing insurance. We don't need those codes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to pigeonhole people and just label their cluster of symptoms and
Yeah,
write them
because
out prescription.
even if if you have some kind of symptoms going on out there, and you're looking for the diagnosis, then what is my question? Okay, so someone's labeled it, but you still don't know, that one path solution that's a band-aid or like something that everyone gets. It's like, oh, you have this, you do this. It's not that simple most of the time. You
Mm.
usually have to it's not a one drug kind of band-aid is what I'm trying to say.
No, I mean we do relief care also. Like when people come to us and they have hot flashes, night sweats. Well, you can't just say, "Oh, well, after a while you'll be balanced. Eventually it'll work itself out." You can't say that. You say, "Well, this is, here's some natural solutions to that symptom that are non-toxic. There are no risk, side effects, contraindications, warnings necessary."
Yeah.
So there's natural stuff that, yeah. So relief care is important. You should feel better very quickly. But now
Yes.
it's like now we're going to do the sort of corrective care. What's really wrong? Oh, well, there's all these different stressors and causal factors, and their interplay between them. So if just getting rid of your hot flashes and night sweats is enough for you, fine. But you'll be back.
Yeah,
And
that's the
you'll be
thing.
back. You'll have, well, now I'm tired and fatigued and low libido and overweight and hair thinning and whatever it might be. And it just downward spirals from there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our initial intake is very comprehensive. Like, well, that's your main complaint, good, but why don't we fix everything we can if possible? And I'm not doing the fixing. Why don't you do the things and let
Yeah.
the body heal?
Well,
So you
that's
could simplify it this way: coach up function, like get everything functioning right. Hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system, oxidative balance and things. We coach up function with nutrition and nurturing and all the things that we do, while we also try to identify all the contributors to metabolic chaos, and get rid of those like bad foods and chemicals. If you haven't ever sent your audience to environmentalworkinggroup.org, EWG.org,
yes, for sure.
and they'll tell you what's in your household care, your household cleaning products, and your personal care products, and what's in the damn new furniture, the outgassing and stuff. What's in kids' pajamas would make you throw up.
Yeah, the
New
chemicals.
pajamas? Oh,
Yeah.
you don't put your kid in new pajamas.
I never even, yeah, when you buy new clothes, you got to wash them. I've definitely
Watch
talked
it
about
10
that.
times, like
Yeah.
I know that sounds ridiculous, but like you got to know some of this stuff.
Right. Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Wow, I'm sure I could talk to you so much more, but I do want to ask you about, I think I have two audiences here, if I'm correct for those listeners out there. I'm pretty sure that I've got the folks that are trying to improve their health, and I've also got the folks that are nutrition minded, maybe nutrition certified. So could you speak a little bit to those two different audiences to where can they go to find out more about you?
Well, whichever audience you're in, you can go to fdntraining.com/Knutson.
Oh,
And you
that's
are
right.
on it, Carrie. Yeah, so fdntraining.com/Knutson. And I think we have a free gift for you there. Probably our Dress for Health Success Guide, which would just kind of walk you through lifestyle ways of just getting better and starting to take a more objective look at things that are going on. Yeah, so if that helps.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. And it'll be a great test for every audience member to see if they can pronounce and spell my last name. I'll include that in the show notes, of course, so
Yeah,
everyone has the
thank
link.
you. And
Yeah.
and whether they're in the sort of practitioner audience or um, the self-care audience, um, the what I do is teach a course in functional lab work as it applies to all natural, drug-free, self-directed remedies and just how to go from unwell to well. And if you're well, how to go to super well, like anti-aging and longevity and that. So it's the same principles.
Yeah.
And most people aren't motivated until they're unwell. That's unfortunate, but they're unwell, and so it doesn't matter what your problem is really. It's the approach you take. And, my students and graduates tend to niche for marketing purposes, like I'm a gut specialist or I'm a hormone specialist or I'm a whatever. The principles are the same, whatever you're trying to, improve. And that's why every trainee, anyone that signs up for our course, runs all the labs on themselves. They're included in tuition, 5 labs
Nice.
and some other stuff. And you work on yourself as you're learning the anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry and things involved. It's pretty nerdy, but it's also very rewarding,
Absolutely.
and
Well,
if all you did is work on yourself, it'd be worth the price of admission. We're not like some college education
yeah.
type fees, but I've had master's degree and PhDs say, I wish I had just took your course instead of
Hmm.
paying $100,000 in debt after 2 years of
Right.
learning stuff that's not helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think, to sum it all up, I think what you're all about there at FDN Read is that personal empowerment and how we can all take control of our health, learn more about how our bodies are supposed to function, and then do the nurturing and do the things that are really putting us in line with where we're supposed to be with our health. And we got to get educated about that these days because there's a lot of things trying to knock us down.
Yes, and you keep up the amazing work you're doing, what your family's doing with the things that you do. I just think it's wonderful. And
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. And I look forward to maybe another conversation or maybe seeing you in Miami in February.
okay, look forward to it.
Thanks so much, Reed. And for everyone else listening, I just want to say stay healthy so you can stay happy. And I'll see you on the next one. Psst, can you do me a favor? Text the link to this episode to a friend who you know needs to hear this. By doing so, you are helping me with my mission to open minds to all the holistic health solutions that are available to us all. We hope you'll support our small business and shop ngvitamins.com for all your supplement needs. Oh, and don't forget to follow, hit the bell on your platform of choice so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed this show, please consider sharing your review on iTunes. Until next time.